Do you guys know Punching Bob? This is Punching Bob, and he is a piece of gym equipment, and it is used for boxers. We train boxers how to use Punching Bob so that you can, I don't know, whenever you get frustrated or you feel like you would like to punch somebody, instead of punching a human, you punch Bob. Punching Bob. Okay, so I said already my husband was a hunter, and I remember the day he came home and discovered that out of the blue, he needed to have a punching bob. I was like, "Why do you need a punching bob?" Right? You don't punch things now anyway. Why punching bob? He's like, "Oh, because I work out every day and I'm just gonna shake up my workouts and I'm gonna do something different. I need a punching bob." I was like, "Okay." So we started looking online and we started going to places like Dick's Sporting Goods, and we were looking around to find a punching bob, and it's not just punching bob, it's then punching gloves, boxing gloves. And then are you just gonna get a punching bob, or are you also gonna get one of those great big bags that hangs from the ceiling? They have these freestanding units that have a great big frame to them, and then there's a big bag that comes down and you can punch and the bag moves a little bit, but it's really, really heavy. So was it gonna be a hanging bag, or was it gonna be a freestanding bag, or was it gonna be a punching bob? And you can see by my picture, punching bob won. But what happened from the purchase was we purchased it because he was gonna shake up his workouts, okay? That was what he told me. He sold me on the idea of a punching bob because he was gonna shake up his existing workouts. I didn't know enough about the decluttering process at the time to ask a different series of questions. Because if you look at it real big, the sudden impulse to shake up workouts, that seemed like a really valid reason to buy Punching Bob, right? That seemed like a valid reason. But what workout are you going to give up in order to pick up Punching Bob? Right? That's where it gets interesting. But what I want us to start asking in our head as we go out to buy something like a punching bob or a new pair of gym shoes or a Pilates mat or an elliptical machine or a treadmill or something that is like, oh, it's the new year. I'm going to get in shape. I want us to ask the question, what workout are you doing right now that you're going to replace with that piece of equipment? And that's a really important question because if you haven't figured out what you're going to plug into its space, it's probably never going to get used. And this is the big reason why the weight equipment is a revolving industry. And you see lots of it on apps like Nextdoor and Buy Nothing Marketplace. And people are trying to sell it on Facebook and all these different neighborhood apps, is because they bought a piece of equipment, but they never figured out how they were going to integrate it into their life. I know that sounds really like obvious, right? It's not obvious. So when we bought Punching Bob, we did not say, "Hey, we're gonna give up our bicycles and we're gonna take up boxing." We ended up buying a bunch of boxing mitts. We bought some, like, little hand pads, like, I could hold up a hand pad and he could punch the pad and I could use resistance. He got me a set of punching mitts, and I don't punch Bob either. If I was gonna punch him, I'd just, like, punch him, like, you know, not with gloves. But we bought all this equipment, and now Punching Bob sits inside my weight room, and he just sits there lonely every day, and nobody ever punches him. Nobody ever comes in to use Punching Bob. So my question is, what workout are you going to replace that with in order for you to justify the price? And this is not so much about money as it is about having a bunch of weird things in your house that then take up space. And then, like, we have to ask the question, if something were ever to happen to me, what happens to Punching Bob? Is somebody just going to give it away? Is my husband going to hang on to it forever? Is he one day going to use it? Is he not going to use it? Like, why do we still have it? And so we can start getting rid of some of the stuff that we're not using. But before we get rid of them, let's make a rule about Punching Bob. Or in this scenario or this case, it could be a treadmill or an elliptical machine or a mini trampoline or whatever the piece of equipment is. Okay. If you don't make a rule about it, it's going to get really easy to go out and buy something different. Oh, well, I didn't use Punching Bob, but I will use an elliptical machine, right? I'm gonna use that while I'm watching TV. Well, what are you doing right now while you're watching TV that you're going to give up in order to replace that with the elliptical machine, right? Because if you're not willing to give anything up, nothing's going to change and you're not going to use it. That's the question. So I want us to start asking the deeper questions so that we come up with the better answers.